Tadanna Sariri mama dadani ga pa sa ga pa sa ni da pa mama na sari ma da ni ga pa sa sari ma ma ga ga ni da da ni da pa mama na
Kartik's mother's called Ramamani, and she's this South Indian vocalist. They're from Bangalore. I think they're from Bangalore originally. And a friend of mine on a gig years ago, like 30 years ago, I think maybe he told me about this music, Karnataka College of Percussion. Karnataka is a region in India. But what's great about Ramamani, because at that time, in fact, I don't know how old Krtic is. He might not have even been born when I heard about this. No, he probably was a child, probably 30 years ago or something. But the thing about Ramamani, she collaborates with lots of Western musicians. So although she's an Indian classical musician and can do that to a really high level, she's very open. And so she collaborates with lots of jazz musicians and other musicians all over the world. And a saxophone player called Charlie Mariano, American saxophone player who moved to Europe, he played with her a lot in different combinations of Karnataka College of Percussion. And that was how I originally heard her music. And I was really grabbed by it. It was amazing, so melodic. In the south of India, there are loads of melodies. In the north, there aren't really any melodies. It's more just improvising in the north, with lots of rules and parameters, but it's quite different. So I'm much more attracted to the south. Anyway, it's more obviously rhythmic. Just it's a bit different from the north. I like the north as well. And different instruments, actually. The violin, actually, is a South Indian instrument, and the mridangam, this drum played like that, and other instruments, and sitar and tabla are kind of North Indian. So I like both. But anyway, so I was listening to this recording, Charlie Mariano live with Karnataka College of Percussion, it's called. And I wrote out all the melodies. And they're all in A-flat, funnily enough, all with an A-flat. That was her tonic. All Indian musicians have like they're tonic, I suppose, and hers was A-flat. And with the sitar player I played with prior to this in England, Darren Singh, he was always D or D-flat. So compositionally, I have to think about that when playing with Indian musicians to a certain extent. Anyway, so I transcribed all these tunes and I played them with musicians in this country in different permutations of bands. And originally I had a band called, the original lineup, Fever Pitch. When I got into this music and also Arabic music, mainly through Rabi Abu Khalil, who's an oud player, which is like a lute. But he's another person, although a classical Arab musician, he collaborates with loads of Western musicians as well and jazz musicians. So particularly these two musicians were very influential on me. This is nearly 30 years ago now. Yeah, in the was it longer than 30 years? Late 90s, no, it's about 25, I don't know, that time. And I had the initial band was called Fever Pitch. And so I did use some of Ramamani's tunes in that, but I also then composed a lot of music myself, influenced by Indian music and influenced by Arab music. That was the first incarnation of a band of mine that's interested in that area of music. That was a 7-piece. Then I had another one called the Unison Quartet. The music's all unison. And then I had another one called Mafarawi, all with different personnel. And then the latest one is called Charakesi, which I've also recorded with recently. Musicians based in this country, and that's with Mike Outram and Calum, who did this session today, and Alison Corley, tenor saxophone player, and Ethan Sweeting, a drummer. So that's the present lineup is a quintet. Somehow Kartik and I got in touch, and I can't quite remember how I did that or why. Well, I think I know why, but because I want to play with him, but I can't remember how. And we got in touch on the internet, I think. And then he came to England, and he came to a gig of mine that I was doing at the Vortex in London, and we talked about doing something. And just before lockdown, so 3 years ago, we were thinking of collaborating, and we were trying to get some things in Europe, and then lockdown happened, we couldn't do anything. So then I found out, we still kept in touch, and I also spoke to Ramamani as well. And then Karthik told me he was coming over here. He's playing with a little tour in England. So I've got to do something. So we met up. I teach at Trinity Laban Conservatoire, and he came in and played to the students in my group because I was playing some of this music with the students. So that was nice for them to meet him. And then I said, well, I'm going to book a session while you're here and just get something down, of my tunes with him playing with the musicians that I normally play with here. So that's the stage we're at this session, and I want to play in Europe with this band, really. I'll tell you something that happened to me that nearly a year ago now. I had some serious teeth, well, actually more gum problems, and I couldn't play for 2 months, which is in like 40, nearly 50 years of playing. That's never happened to me before. So it was very concerning, but because I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to play again. But I did use the time to compose lots of new music. And I think I've been a bit stuck composing for this particular project. I composed for another quartet of mine. But I used that time to compose lots of new music. So some of the things we did today, some were new, and we did 4 compositions, and 1 or 2 were older. So it's a mixture. And all this music, it's not like a jazz. I'm not writing in many chords or anything, but it's very influenced by Indian music. So it's drone based. It's sometimes non-Western scales. That's the reason for, and different rhythmic kind of patterns. That was my premise for getting into it originally, to force myself to play non-Western scales, ragas, and also force myself to play rhythmic pieces or time signatures that I was a bit more uncomfortable with. That's really the premise for the band, but not have loads of harmony, like in the Western world. Not with Krtic, because it's a new meeting, but with Mike. I've been the guitar player Mike Outram I played with for 25 years, and he's in most of my projects because he's one of my favourite musicians in the world. And Calum, Gourlay, the bass player we play with today, I've known for nearly 20 years actually. He was a student at Royal Academy of Music when I still teach there, but I was teaching there probably a lot more there those days, and we started playing together. And on and off I played with him over the years. Fantastic as well. But I know for him, and also Mike to a certain extent, they are not familiar with this area of music. Mike is more because he's been doing it with me a bit longer, but Calum, it's much more recent. So it's nice. I think it's nice for him because he's such a great bass player. He needs a challenge. So this was a challenge for him. Yeah, I think what I'd like to do with this project is hopefully Ramamani will sing on it as well. And this recording, I think she'll add to it. When Karthik takes the recording back to India, he's going to put more percussion on and she can sing it. So I'm really excited about that, see what they do with it. really like to get this band in Europe with her as well. So it'd probably be a quintet, so it's saxophone, bass, guitar, percussion, and voice. It could be with or without voice. That's really the idea, and also record an album with this lineup. Well, we didn't do any of her tunes today, but certainly her influence, compositional influence, has influenced my tunes. With her music, what's so great about her music, and mine to a certain extent, is that anyone can play it. Although I've got some ideas about my tunes, this lineup of players is going to sound different from another lineup of players playing it. So the music is not strict in that way. I've got parameters about how I want the actual sound world to be. But apart from that, I'm sort of open to ideas. In fact, Karthik was suggesting a few things today. But with her music, yeah, I think if I collaborate with her, it'll probably be a mixture, because I'd like to do some of her tunes and some of. I'm so intrigued about her singing Ramamani singing my compositions. So a plan would be a mixture, I think, if she's able to be involved. I'm so glad I got it recorded. She did 4 tunes, and Karthik didn't know them. I mean, I'd sent him a recording and he'd listened a little bit, but so we rehearsed in the studio, which was really nice. And he had some kind of ideas of what to play and also what the others could play. What else about the session? Pretty smooth running session, actually. We did 2 or 3 takes of each tune, and so there's a lot we can use. And it's a very high level of improvising by everybody. I mean, it's so exciting for me to hear the others play my music. I mean, they're really inside it and make incredible contributions. This is the music we did today. Forgotten what tunes we did. I wanted them to be contrasting. So, yeah, they are contrasting. I'm just looking at the music, thinking how it was. There's one called Cosmic Dance, which is a more recent one of the ones I wrote when I couldn't play. And a long time ago, I hung out with this guy, Peter Lockett, who's a percussionist, and he's an English guy, but he's taken Indian, I suppose the Indian rhythmic language to a very high level. Very unusual for a Western musician. He played with a lot of Indian music. But I just noticed on his website he's sort of retired from playing. Maybe he's had enough, I'm not sure. But I hung out with him around that time when I was getting into this music. It's 25 years ago or longer. And I remember he was talking to me about this, because I didn't really know much about it at the time, a rhythmic device. He called it Pallavi. I'm not sure whether that's accurate, actually, because I've since looked up Pallavi meaning something else. But what he was explaining to me is that having this, you could have one little melody and then play it. So it's one tempo, then you play it in triplets, and then you play it in semiquavers. So it becomes 3 different tempos. So instead of a tiny little melody that's like 6 bars, which is this one's 7 bars actually, it becomes a whole page of music. So that one's Cosmic Dance, and I wrote a couple more like that years ago, which I did call First and Second Pallavi. So that little thing he told me about really influenced me compositionally, thinking about how I could. It's just manipulating rhythm, really. So that was one piece, Cosmic Dance. Stepping Stone. I'm not quite sure why I called it that, but there was a particular raga that I liked at the time that is this kind of scale that's based on. And The Journey, that was a book by Brandon Bayes, and this is in 7, so I wanted to do something in 7. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, and a kind of gentle one called Ole we played today, which is dedicated to a very interesting guy called Ole Damagard. And they are the tunes we played today.